Hello, ladies and gentlemen, brother and sister. Listen to me carefully in our journey of faith. We are often called to reflect on the essence of our traditions and the spirit in which they were conceived. Traditions serve as anchors, grounding us in our beliefs and practices. Yet, there comes a time when we must discern whether these traditions continue to serve their intended purpose, or if they have become mere rituals devoid of meaning. Consider the recent decision to simplify the funeral rites of the Bishop of Rome. For centuries, the papal funeral has been characterized by grandeur and opulence, with elaborate ceremonies and multiple coffins made of cypress, lead, and oak. However, a choice has been made to forego these trappings in favor of a more modest and humble approach. The revised rites emphasize that the Pope's funeral is that of a shepherd and disciple of Christ, not that of a powerful man of this world. This shift reflects a desire to return to the core message of the gospel, a message of humility, service, and simplicity. This decision also includes a preference for burial in the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome, rather than the traditional burial site beneath St. Peter's Basilica. Such a choice underscores a commitment to humility and a desire to be remembered not for one's position, but for one's service to God and humanity. These changes are not made lightly. They stem from a profound reflection on the role of the Pope as a servant of the servants of God. By embracing simplicity in death, the message is clear. The true legacy of a Pope lies not in the grandeur of his funeral, but in the love and compassion he showed during his life. Let us remember the words, "I want a ceremony that is dignified yet simplified, like all Christians." This sentiment captures the essence of the recent changes, a desire to be united with all believers in life and in death, without distinction or privilege. As we reflect on these developments, may we be inspired to examine our own lives and traditions. Let us seek to embody the values of humility, service, and simplicity in all that we do, remembering that true greatness lies not in power or prestige, but in love and compassion for others. So many have asked why such a choice would be made, to step away from the grandeur, the solemn tradition, the layers of ceremony that have, for so long, defined a papal passing. But perhaps the better question is, why not? When the Master himself had nowhere to lay his head, when he was wrapped not in silks but in linen, and laid in a borrowed tomb, why should any of his servants seek more? This does not diminish the role, nor does it discard the value of tradition. It renews it. It asks us to see it with fresh eyes, not as an obligation to repeat, but as an invitation to reimagine. A tradition that cannot serve the present moment in its truth and urgency becomes brittle. It is not destroyed by change, it is redeemed by love. And how often has love looked like simplicity, a table shared, a gesture of mercy, a word of forgiveness spoken quietly in the ear of one who thought they were forgotten. These are the altars where God has always chosen to dwell. These are the coffins in which pride is buried and grace rises. As he once wrote, "Let us not be robbed of the joy of evangelization." Evangelii Gaudium p. 22, and there is no greater act of evangelization than to make one's entire life, and yes, even one's death, a proclamation of the gospel. What good is it to preach Christ crucified and risen, if we ourselves fear to be seen in the simplicity of the cross? The world is watching, but not always in the ways we expect. It is not the gold of the tomb, but the clay of the heart that speaks loudest. In choosing a funeral devoid of lavish rites, the message thunders quietly, "I came as one who serves." Indeed, we recall the very beginning of this ministry, where the voice trembled and said simply, "Pray for me." No conquering monarch, no imperial greeting, just a brother asking for prayer, and now, in the final gesture, not a grand exit, but a soft return to the earth as one among the people. The grandeur of the papacy lies not in the weight of crowns or the length of processions, but in the willingness to kneel and to weep with those who suffer. The true inheritance is not silver nor gold, but the witness of a life spent breaking bread with strangers and making the forgotten feel like family. Even in this, he teaches us still that a life close to the poor should end as one of the poor. That one who dined with the homeless, who kissed the wounds of the sick, should not be carried away under heavy marble, but entrusted to the Mother in a simple basilica, where the people kneel and pray in the quiet of candlelight. It is a prophetic act, and like all prophecy, it will be misunderstood by some, dismissed by others, but it will also be planted in hearts like seed in good soil. It will grow in ways we cannot yet imagine. There will be those who ask, "What of the honor due to the office?" And to them let it be said, honor is not measured in tombs, but in testimony, in the cry of the poor who felt heard, in the imprisoned who found hope, in the migrants who saw someone walk beside them instead of watching from a balcony. This is not the rejection of tradition, it is its purification, a return not to less, but to more faith, more truth, more love, and perhaps most of all, more silence in which the Spirit can speak. An evangelizing community knows that the Lord has taken the initiative. He has loved us first, and it does so by going out, by being bold and creative. Evangelii Gaudium p. 24. In the boldness of this simplicity, we are all invited to go out of comfort, out of formality, out of expectation, and into the embrace of a gospel that is always more radical than we remember. And what more radical act than to say, "I do not want to be buried as a sovereign, but laid to rest as a servant," not in marble cathedrals, but where the people still bring flowers wrapped in newspaper, where the prayers are whispered in many languages, where the walls are not gilded but marked by the fingerprints of the faithful. This is not weakness, it is power made perfect in humility. It is the strength that comes not from high places, but from the lowest place, the cross. The temptation to idolize power, even spiritual power, is as old as the church itself. And every now and then the Spirit raises up a moment, a gesture that smashes the golden calves. This is such a gesture, a simple burial, a refusal of pomp, a final act of solidarity with the forgotten. And how fitting, how deeply moving, that the request was not shouted but written in quiet instructions, given not to make a statement, but to make space for God, for truth, for mercy. And so what remains is not a monument, but a message that the Church is at her most beautiful, not when she exalts herself, but when she empties herself in love, that the greatness of a life is not measured by how loudly it is mourned, but by how faithfully it was lived. That even at the highest seat one can choose the lowest place, and in doing so lift us all. Let this final request echo louder than any bell, that we are not called to be served, but to serve, not to be remembered in stone, but to be etched into hearts, not to be buried in glory, but to rise in grace. God never tires of forgiving us. We are the ones who tire of seeking his mercy. Evangelii Gaudium p. 26. May this humble farewell stir us anew to seek that mercy, to live that mercy, and to become, each in our own way, a quiet revolution of tenderness. Amen. Thanks for watching.